if you're getting ready to buy a house, one of the very first things you do is hire an inspector.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's pretty much mandatory.
Right, because they go down into the dark, damp basement and they shine a flashlight right on the foundation.
They test the water pressure in the pipes.
Exactly. They test all of it. And eventually, they hand you this highly objective, heavily detailed checklist of structural red flags.
Which is so helpful because, otherwise you're just guessing.
Totally guessing. Like they'll say, hey, there are termites chewing through the joists over here, or you've got severe water damage behind the drywall over there.
And it's all totally visible once someone actually points it out to you.
Yes. Because of that checklist, you know exactly what needs fixing, what you can live with, and, what you should just completely walk away from. You aren't guessing.
Right. It creates a perfectly binary system for decision-making.
Yeah.
The structure is either sound enough to support you, or it's just fundamentally compromised.
Yeah, there's no emotional ambiguity about a cracked foundation.
No, definitely not.
But then you look at the architecture of our social lives, and suddenly that trusted inspector is just gone. We are completely flying blind.
We really are.
We rely entirely on these vague gut feelings when a friendship starts to feel a little off. But we can't actually see the structural damage. We just feel this underlying anxiety that the connection is rotting from the inside out.
It is the absolute definition of navigating in the dark. We feel the cold draft in the room, but we just cannot locate the crack in the window.
That's a great way to put it.
And because we can't point to a specific tangible flaw, we usually end up, gaslighting ourselves into thinking everything is totally fine.
Oh, 100%. We have all felt that weird, nagging intuition when a friendship feels incredibly one-sided, but it is so remarkably hard to validate it.
It really is.
Well, for you listening right now, consider us your social home inspectors today.
I love that title.
Right. We have a short, incredibly hard-hitting source text to examine today. It's titled simply Fair Weather Friend.
And it is brutal, honestly.
It is. It's essentially a diagnostic checklist of the not-so-subtle signs that someone doesn't actually want to be your friend anymore.
Yeah.
So the mission for this deep dive is to use this source to help you audit your own social circles, validate that nagging intuition you've been feeling, and frankly, protect your time and energy. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the most tangible, physical evidence of a one-sided friendship.
The logistics.
Exactly. Let's call it the logistics of avoidance.
The logistical layer is where the truth usually leaks out first. Long before people actually articulate how they feel, their schedules and their response times start doing the talking for them.
Oh, for sure.
We are creatures of habit. And when our habits around a specific person change, it is a glaring indicator of a shifting internal priority.
And the source outlines several major red flags in this logistical category, and they all kind of compound on each other. The checklist notes that they rarely respond to your messages. They cancel plans without trying to reschedule. You are always the one reaching up first. They're always, quote unquote, too busy for you. And ultimately, you just put in far more effort than they do.
And when you look at those behaviors in a vacuum, you might be able to excuse one or two of them. People get busy.
Yeah, exactly.
But stacked back to back like that, it paints a very stark picture of a massive effort imbalance. It is a mathematical equation where one side is doing all the heavy lifting.
The way I visualize this dynamic, and it's so frustrating when you're in it, when you are putting in all this reaching out, crafting thoughtful texts, suggesting coffee dates, and getting absolute silence back.
It's exhausting.
It feels like playing a game of tennis where you keep enthusiastically serving the ball over the net, but the other person just stands there on the baseline.
They don't even swing.
No, they just watch it bounce past them into the chain link fence over and over again. You keep serving, they keep watching.
And then when you finally ask them why they aren't swinging the racket, they tell you they couldn't hit the ball back because they were just too busy.
Yes. Which brings me to a core realization I had while reading this. So what does this all mean when they say they are too busy?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Based on this list, is it really an issue of time, or is too busy just the polite cover story for a lack of priority? Because when I read always too busy, immediately followed by cancels without trying to reschedule, it completely changed my perspective.
Oh, so?
It stopped looking like a calendar issue to me, and it started looking like a priority issue. Like, too busy just feels like a polite lie.
Well, it is almost entirely about priority. And the psychology behind that cover story is fascinating. Look closely at the specific combination of behaviors the source highlights.
Okay.
If someone is genuinely overwhelmed with life, say they just had a baby, or they're in the middle of finals week, or they're launching a company, they might genuinely be slow to respond.
Sure, that makes sense.
They might even have to cancel at the last minute. But the critical differentiator in this source material is the phrase, without trying to reschedule.
Oh, because if you actually want to see someone, but you are drowning in obligations, your natural instinct is to secure a future time when you actually can see them.
Exactly.
Like, you don't just leave the relationship hovering in a void.
Precisely. You say, I am absolutely drowning in work this week, but please don't think I'm ignoring you. Can we lock in next Tuesday?
Right. Give me a date.
But when you combine always too busy with canceling without rescheduling and the fact that you are always the one reaching out first, it just strips away the excuse of time. It reveals a pattern of intentional passive avoidance. They are relying on your social grace to not push the issue.
Wow, yeah. It's like the too busy excuse is the social equivalent of a locked door.
That's a great analogy.
It is socially acceptable enough that you can't really call them out on it without looking unreasonable or clingy. Like if you say, I know you aren't really that busy, you just look like the bad guy.
You look totally crazy.
Right. But the result is the same, whether the door is locked politely or rudely. You are still locked out. And that effort imbalance the source mentions is just the inevitable result of you constantly trying to pick that lock while they are comfortably sitting on the other side of the door just waiting for you to give up.
Which is incredibly draining. It creates a tremendous amount of cognitive dissonance for the person on the outside.
Yeah.
You're being told one thing, I'm just busy, but your body is feeling the reality of the rejection.
Man, that's heavy. Let's move into the next phase of this dynamic, because the source doesn't stop at physical absence.
No, it goes deeper.
Sometimes, despite the locked doors and the dropped tennis balls, you actually do manage to get this person in a room. You get them to a coffee shop, or you finally get them on a phone call. The logistics line up. But just because they showed up physically doesn't mean they are truly present.
Right. So we are transitioning from the logistics of physical absence to the nuances of emotional absence. This is often much harder to detect because they have fulfilled the basic requirement of showing up.
Yeah, they're physically there. The source lists 3 specific signs for this emotional absence phase. It says conversations feel flat and rushed. They keep you at arm's length socially. And their friendliness feels polite, not warm.
Right.
But I want to push back on this for a second, because we have to be careful not to pathologize normal human fatigue. Like, could flat and rushed conversations just mean someone is having a bad day? Or maybe they are neurodivergent or just socially awkward? I mean, are we punishing introverts here?
That is a crucial distinction to make. A single flat conversation or even a couple of rushed phone calls during a stressful month is just the reality of being human.
Okay, good.
We cannot demand constant high-energy warmth from our friends 24/7. That's unreasonable. However, the source material intends for us to read these signs as a constellation, not as isolated stars.
I see.
If flat, rushed, and distant is the baseline of the entire relationship, and it is coupled with the logistical avoidance we just talked about, it is no longer a bad day. It is a clearly constructed boundary.
That makes a lot of sense. So when I read that their friendliness feels polite, not warm, I realize politeness isn't actually about being nice.
No, not at all.
It's about drawing a line in the sand. Interacting with someone exhibiting these signs doesn't feel like talking to a friend at all. It feels like reading a formal corporate email.
Yes.
It's the verbal equivalent of, per our last conversation, I hope this finds you well. Like, it is technically friendly. It follows all the rules of grammar and society, but it is completely sterile. There is no blood pumping through it.
What's fascinating here is the explicit distinction the source draws between polite and warm. We routinely conflate the two in our daily lives.
We really do.
We are taught from childhood that someone is polite to us, they're being friendly. But historically and psychologically, politeness is actually a social construct designed to manage distance, not close it.
Oh, wow. Think about how we treat strangers. Like, if I am in line at the grocery store or interacting with a distant colleague from another department, I am polite. I say please and thank you. I offer a tight-lipped smile. I make sure not to offend them. I use manners to ensure a smooth, frictionless interaction with someone I am actively choosing not to get close to.
And warmth is the exact opposite. Warmth implies vulnerability. It requires familiarity, letting your guard down, and removing those formal social buffers.
Right. You're not polite with your best friend. You're just yourself.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
when the source says their friendliness feels polite, not warm, and that they keep you at arm's length socially, it means they are actively weaponizing politeness as a shield. They are treating you with the same emotional distance they would afford a stranger in a waiting room.
That is a profound way to look at it. They're performing the absolute bare minimum social requirement to not be labeled a jerk by the outside world, but that performance is specifically calibrated to keep you from getting a single inch closer.
Yeah, they're managing their image.
Which gives them an incredibly frustrating amount of plausible deniability. Because if you finally snap and complain that they aren't acting like a friend, they can throw their hands up and say, "What are you talking about? I am perfectly nice to you. I asked about your weekend."
It creates a very subtle form of psychological manipulation. You feel the coldness in your bones, but all you can point to on paper is polite behavior. It makes you second-guess your own intuition.
You feel crazy.
You start wondering if you are just being too needy, which is exactly why the source checklist is so valuable. It validates that the difference between polite and warm is not imaginary. It is a real, measurable metric of a fair-weather friend.
Okay, so if they are keeping you at arm's length and their responses are flat and they are essentially acting like a corporate HR rep in a coffee shop, it begs a pretty massive question.
What's that?
What are they actually getting out of this interaction? Like, why even bother showing up and paying for the coffee if they're just going to be a polite brick wall?
That is the core of it.
The source actually gives us the answer, and it shifts us into our third category, the egocentric dynamic.
This is the phase where the true nature of the arrangement reveals itself. If a relationship is not built on mutual connection, it is almost always built on utility.
Right. If it's not about connection, it's about an audience. The source points out 4 distinct signs in this category. It says they don't really listen when you talk. They only want to talk about themselves. The friendship revolves entirely around them. And this one is wild. Their advice feels condescending or unwanted.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see how seamlessly this aligns with the previous signs of avoidance and polite distance. They aren't interested in the mutual exchange of ideas or feelings because that requires warmth, vulnerability, and effort.
Right, that's too much work.
They are strictly interested in a one-way flow of attention. When they completely glaze over while you speak, but suddenly light up when the topic shifts back to them, they have essentially demoted you. You are no longer a peer, you are a sounding board.
You are an extra in the movie of their life. Your only job is to stand in the background and applaud their monologues.
Exactly. A friendship that revolves entirely around one person's ego is an energy sink. You are pouring your focused attention into them, and they are absorbing it like a sponge without ever returning anything of substance. It leaves you feeling completely depleted after every interaction.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, though. I struggle with the detail about giving advice.
Okay, what is that?
Well, if someone is deeply self-centered and only wants to talk about themselves and doesn't actually value your friendship, why would they expend the mental energy to give you advice at all?
That's a fair point.
Because if I don't care about someone, the last thing I want to do is sit there and try to solve their complex life problems. Giving advice usually feels like an act of care, so why do it?
That is a brilliant observation, and it does seem completely counterintuitive at first glance. Why do the emotional labor for someone you are trying to avoid? But look closely at the specific adjectives the source uses to describe this behavior. The advice isn't helpful or empathetic. It is condescending or unwanted.
Right. It's the kind of advice that makes you feel smaller after you hear it.
Because it is not actually about helping you. It is entirely about elevating them. When someone dispenses condescending, unsolicited advice, they are instantly positioning themselves as the wise, put-together expert, and they are positioning you as the chaotic project that needs fixing.
Oh, wow.
It instantly reinforces a hierarchy. They get the dopamine hit of feeling superior and in control while subtly highlighting your flaws or struggles.
Oh, that makes so much sense. It ties right back into the egocentric dynamic. Even when they are supposedly talking about you and your problems, they are not actually seeing you.
No, not at all.
They are just using your problems as a convenient stage to showcase their own perceived brilliance. It's not support, it's a performance.
It is a power play, masquerading as friendship. And crucially, it allows them to maintain that polite arm's length distance we talked about earlier. You cannot be true, vulnerable equals with someone if one person insists on constantly playing the role of the condescending life coach. It keeps you safely beneath them.
That is incredibly insidious. So, to recap the profile we are building here, we have a person who actively avoids you logistically, uses sterile politeness as a shield to keep you emotionally distant, and on the rare occasions they do interact with you, they just use you as an audience or a prop to feel superior.
It's quite a list.
It is. And to maintain a convoluted dynamic like that, where they are always conveniently too busy but still demand to be the center of attention when it suits their ego, they usually have to start bending reality. Which leads us to the final and maybe most jarring sign on the sources checklist.
The breaking point. The moment the facade finally cracks under its own weight.
An ultimate red flag. Their stories don't quite add up.
This raises an important question about the structural integrity of everything else we've discussed today. When you catch someone in a lie, or even just a glaring, clumsy inconsistency, it immediately casts a shadow backward over the entire history of the relationship.
Right.
Suddenly, you find yourself reevaluating all those previous logistical data points.
You really do. You start running the tape back in your head. You realize, wait a minute, you told me on Tuesday you couldn't make it to my birthday dinner because you were completely swamped at work and staying until midnight. But now you are casually telling a story about a happy hour you went to on Tuesday evening.
Yep.
The math is completely broken.
That broken math is the result of the cognitive load required to maintain a fair weather friendship.
The cognitive load.
Yeah, it requires a significant amount of polite fiction to keep someone around as a convenient sounding board without actually paying the tax of real emotional labor.
That makes sense.
But maintaining a web of those fictions, like remembering who you told the I'm too busy lie to versus the I didn't see your text lie versus the I have family in town, it's exhausting. Eventually, human memory fails, people slip up, the stories stop aligning.
So what does this all mean for the listener? If you are going through this mental checklist right now with a specific friend in mind, and you get to this final point, you realize their stories genuinely are not adding up. How should you process that? Does catching them in a lie confirm all the other avoidant behaviors on the list?
It is the loudest, most undeniable alarm bell on the entire list. It fundamentally shifts the dynamic from passive avoidance to active deception.
Right, because avoidance is one thing, lying is another.
Exactly. When someone is just constantly busy or that's self-centered, you can sometimes generously chalk it up to a severe lack of self-awareness.
Right.
But when stories start explicitly contradicting each other, you're dealing with someone who is actively, consciously trying to manage your perception of them through dishonesty.
Yeah, they're protecting themselves.
They are lying to preserve the convenience of the arrangement without having to face the discomfort of ending the friendship.
They want all the benefits of your attention, your audience, and your validation without paying the baseline cost of basic honesty.
And once that foundational trust is breached, it is exceptionally difficult to rebuild, especially with someone who has already spent months demonstrating through their canceled plans and polite distance that they have zero interest in putting effort into the repair work.
Man, well, we have walked through the logistics of avoidance, the sterile illusion of connection, the draining egocentric dynamic, and the ultimate red flag of active deception.
We covered a lot.
If you are listening to this right now and recognizing these signs in someone you know, take a deep breath. It is a harsh, uncomfortable reality to face. But having this objective checklist is the first step toward protecting your peace.
It really is.
Friendship should never feel like an uphill battle where you are doing all the heavy lifting, navigating flat conversations, serving tennis balls into a fence, and enduring condescending advice just to get a scrap of attention.
It is vital to remember that healthy relationships are supposed to be reciprocal ecosystems. They require mutual nourishment. What this source material ultimately gives you is permission to stop watering dead plants.
Stop watering dead plants. That is the perfect way to frame it.
Thank you.
If you are constantly generating all the warmth and effort, and you are only getting polite distance and canceled plans in return, it is entirely okay to match their energy.
Absolutely.
You don't necessarily have to script out a massive, dramatic confrontation. Sometimes the healthiest response is simply to stop reaching out first. You step back, conserve your own energy, and let the dynamic naturally settle exactly where the other person clearly wants it to be, which is at a distance.
Yeah, let them go.
You take your tennis racket and you go find someone who actually wants to play the game with you.
Before we wrap up, though, there is one final angle to this checklist we need to explore. We have spent this entire deep dive looking outward, analyzing how to spot these avoidance signs in other people. I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, slightly provocative thought to ponder on your own time.
Oh, this is good. Because it is much easier to spot the termites in someone else's house than it is to admit they're eating your own foundation.
Precisely. Take a really hard look in the mirror today. Are there any friendships in your own life right now where you are the one exhibiting these exact fair weather behaviors?
Wow.
Are you the one who is mysteriously always too busy for a specific person? Are your conversations with them flat and rushed? Are you dispensing condescending advice or keeping someone at arm's length simply because you don't know how to gently and honestly tell them that the friendship has run its course?
That is heavy. But it's true. Sometimes we play the role of the fair weather friend ourselves simply because we are desperately trying to avoid the discomfort of a real, honest conversation.
It happens all the time.
But as we've learned today, the polite fade out leaves lasting structural damage of its own. Audit your social circles, but make sure to check your own foundation first. Make sure it's solid. That's all we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next one.